Well, hello, Facebook. This is David Thornburg, President and CEO of the Committee of 70. Welcome to a special Election Day edition of Studio C70, where we take advantage of maybe some breaks in the action on Election Day to talk to folks that are up to their eyeballs in what's going on out there, not just today, but each and every day. Right now, we're thrilled to be joined by Debbie Gross, who is president and CEO of a group called Pennsylvanians for Modern Courts. Debbie, welcome to Studio C70.
Thanks for having me.
Well, this is a kind of a big day for your organization because today is a day we're electing judges. And part of what I hope you can help folks with is a kind of a quick speed primer on the judicial races that they're being asked to weigh in on. Now, some folks have already put their ballots in the mail and maybe have figured that out, but others will be heading off to the polling place. So let's just start with the basics and just kind of take the short tour of speaking to folks across the state. Who are we electing? Which judges are we electing today, and what in the world do they do?
I'm going to start top down. So Pennsylvania, we have this triangle that we talk about where our highest court, which is our smallest court really, is our Pennsylvania Supreme Court. It has the final authority in the state. We are electing one judge for that position. The judge who is retiring was the Chief Justice, Justice Taylor. He has stepped down because he hit the retirement age. And, it is a contested election. There have been, this court is comprised of 7 justices. There are 3 women currently on this bench. It really has the final say in Pennsylvania, right? So I say it's a pyramid and it's structured at the top at the thinnest, but it's also, where a court, I'd say, almost of last resort. If you have when you enter our Pennsylvania court system, you enter either through like a municipal court or a common pleas court. And if for some reason you're not happy with that decision, you could appeal that decision. And you have an automatic right of appeal to an intermediate level court called our Superior Court. If again, you are not happy with the Superior Court decision, you can appeal, but it is not an automatic right of appeal, and our Supreme Court can decide not to take it. So that's our first court, our highest court, I should say, that I can say where there's a vacancy, right?
So let's go down the ranks then.
So we'll go down the ranks. The next level is the Superior Court. And again, we have 1 vacancy. This Superior Court is one of the busiest courts in the country because there is this right of appeal. It is a bench made up of 15 judges and there is 1 seat vacant. And again, these are courts where they're like the Supreme and Superior Court. There are not trials, but these are courts where it's mainly, argument. It's not often that you have a pro se individual making an argument, but for some kind of, I would say, like a civil rights claim. But, this court also issues decisions that are pretty much final and, influential. And our courts in Pennsylvania, 96% of cases that are filed in state courts, right? So, and our state court, these appellate courts really impact our everyday life. They make decisions on health, on education, on voting, even on the judiciary, so they really do have a final say. So that's our Superior Court. So that's 1 level down, I'll say, on that triangle. Also, as an intermediate appellate court is our Commonwealth Court. It is in Pennsylvania, this is a very unique court. There are no other states in the country that have a Commonwealth Court. And this court, it handles matters brought, I would like to say, by like municipalities, counties, by the state. We have 2 openings on that court. It is an entry level court as well as an appeals court. So the candidates, for each of these appellate courts, the Commonwealth, the Superior, and Supreme have all participated in forums, actually, that Pennsylvanians for Modern Courts co-sponsored with the Committee of 70. We have the recordings of the forums on our website if you want to see them. And do you want me to go down one more level?
Yeah, sure. Just to kind of paint the whole picture.
So our entry level courts, right, our municipal courts in Philadelphia, our magisterial district courts, I would say, outside of Philadelphia, and then our Court of Common Pleas. And where you enter depends really on what you're charged with as a defendant, or what the amount of the claim is if you bring a private, civil action. So these courts are, in Philadelphia, for example, we have 12 common pleas judicial positions open, and we have 12 candidates. So it's not that contested in Philadelphia. The primary, by contrast, was seriously contested. In Pittsburgh, there are, I want to say 10 seats for Common Pleas Court open, and there are 18 candidates. So the local elections, typically have more candidates running. These, and I say they're local because, the Philadelphia Court of Common Pleas addresses matters arising in Philadelphia, right? Montgomery County has a Court of Common Pleas. We have 60 different judicial counties in Pennsylvania.
Yeah. Well, thanks for completing the lineup. I can say, having just filled out my ballot last night, it's a little intimidating.
Yeah.
But let's talk about your advice to voters as to how you should evaluate a judicial candidate at whatever level, but maybe because it's going to vary, local versus a statewide. But because, and we'll talk about this in a bit, running in a political process for a judicial race is a little problematic. That being said, what's your advice to why is it problematic? But in the meanwhile, what's your advice to voters as to how they should get a feel for who they should vote for?
So I'm going to start with sort of I'll start with the problematic parts. So first, judicial elections are in odd years. Not a lot of people go out. I mean, we'll see, but in the May primary, we had 2 million people go out to vote. Your vote does count. If you want your vote to count, get out and vote. But that's the first problem, right? We're electing people who are making decisions that impact our lives, probably more so than any other branch of government, yet they're being elected by fewer people than any other branch of government. So that's the first. Second, campaigns cost money. So that means that a judge who is supposed to be a fair, impartial, and just, arbiter, right, has to raise money. Now, the judge or justice doesn't he or she himself go out and ask for money. They can't do that. They're forbidden. But they do have a campaign committee, and and they are responsible for statements that the campaign committee puts out. So it is concerning that a judge is raising money from somebody or some party who could possibly be in front of that judge.
What's the ballpark right now, as of 2:00 this afternoon, about what the candidates in the Supreme Court race will raise and spend? What's ballpark number?
Right. Well, so right now the articles say there's been almost $6 million raised, but I can tell you in the 2015 Supreme Court elections, where there were 3 seats in Pennsylvania, there was over $25 million raised. Now, some of that money was not from candidates' campaigns themselves, but from from what we know as dark money, right? From PACs. We don't know who contributes to them.
Yeah, most expensive judicial race in the history of the nation, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. Right.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
because it changed the composition, the consistency of the court.
Yeah. Well,
So
you've sketched out. There's also what's problematic, and you can help folks understand this. The judicial candidates can't talk about decisions that they might render. or
Right.
or how they might view cases that would come before them, right? That's part of the problem too.
That's absolutely part of the problem, right? So how does somebody find out about a candidate when you can't say to the candidate, how are you going to go, how would you vote or decide on this? So people, I mean, fortunately, there is the internet, there are debates, there are reporters. So there is information if you want to search. Okay. You can find out about what the candidate does, in its community. Does that candidate, care about its community, give back to the community? But again, a judge who might be running for a higher court or for retention can't get out in the community in certain areas. They are limited by their code of ethics, judicial canons. The
So
other
they're raising
issue,
a lot of money, and yet they are forbidden, as they should be. I mean, this is right that they shouldn't be able to talk about prospective cases. So that leaves voters being bombarded with a lot of information that not all of which is useful, I suppose.
right?
What's a voter to do?
So fortunately, I would like to say, the bar associations across the state do a really good job of investigating and vetting judges. So the Pennsylvania Bar Association reviews, investigates judges for the appellate courts. The Philadelphia Bar Association reviews and investigates judges for the Philadelphia courts, the common pleas and municipal courts, as well as appellate court candidates who have offices in Philadelphia. Allegheny County does the same thing for Allegheny County. And each of these bar associations, Montgomery County does something similar for judges running in Montgomery County. Each of these bar associations has a very thorough process. There is a questionnaire that first has to be filled out. Then a team is put together by the bar association. I was on the Philadelphia Bar Association's Judicial Selection and Retention Committee. It is the investigative team is comprised of 5 people, one of whom cannot be a lawyer. We have to interview 20 independent sources. So they cannot be sources that the candidate has suggested, because we, assume that person is biased. We look at, writings, we look at briefs, we look at memorandum, we reach out to, the communities that the candidate is involved in. We reach out to judges that the candidate has been in front of. We reach out to, the candidates are lawyers. We reach out to opposing parties to get information on candidates, or secretaries, or assistants, or co-workers. I mean, we do a very thorough vetting. The investigative committee then makes a recommendation to the Bar Association's judicial team, Judicial Selection Commission. In the Philadelphia Bar Association, that is comprised of over 30 people. It is a very diverse group. It is lawyers, non-lawyers. It is judges. It is both sides. It's a district attorney. It's a public defender. It's a U.S. attorney. It's plaintiffs, personal injury bar, the defense bar. The family law bar. There's a public interest representative. There's somebody from community legal services. What that group does is they then interview the candidate, they interview the head of the team, and they make a decision whether the person should be recommended, not recommended, or highly recommended. So it is, it is thorough.
So these are not drive-by recommendations. These are really in depth. Yeah.
Yeah. And they take a very long time. I mean, there have been times when there has been criticism of the Bar Association Committee's investigation because the commission cannot defend itself, again, because we want the judges or the candidates for judges to be interviewed in confidence with so that they can speak. We can also interview the sources, in private so that they can speak freely. So the bar associations do not disclose, transcripts or hearings or notes, but they do make recommendations of, recommended, not recommended, or highly recommended.
I should point out to folks watching, if you use the Committee of 70's ballot tool, which is online at our site 70.org, to research candidates and build your ballot so that when you go to vote in person or by mail or in a mail ballot, you can do so carefully. We note the Bar Association recommendations all down the line, and it's an enormously important service that the bar brings to this. So we've talked about what's problematic about these races. We've talked about the races. We've talked about what a poor voter should do. Now let's talk about the maybe a preview of coming attractions. One of which is back to our old friend merit selection, which is I know a proposal that your organization has long embraced. Ours has long embraced. Remains a bit of a shining light on the horizon. But talk about, in your view, in the view of your organization, where should we be headed in terms of how we pick higher level judges in Pennsylvania?
I really think that higher level judges should be chosen based on, a commission, a committee, or an appointment, or a selection. But running for judge, it's not good for anybody. It's not good for the judges, right? They have to go across the state. And what's also important, at least for appellate court judges, right? They should not be beholden to a constituent. They represent all constituents across the state, and they shouldn't feel that they would have to, their constituency, and let me put it this way, is the rule of law, right? So when we elect our legislators, we want them to hear us and help us with our problems. Unfortunately, a judge can't really help us with our problems. A judge can help us only in terms of how the rule of law would provide. So that's the difficulty with electing judges, right? And the expectation that they should respond to a constituent. Yeah. In a merit appointment, yes, the Pennsylvanians for Modern Courts Committee C70, sorry about that, and a number of other organizations, the Pennsylvania Bar Association, have supported merit selection or merit appointment. The bill has languished. Hopefully, maybe it will come back in the near future, but the legislature has been a little preoccupied this year. Yeah. So we'll see what happens.
And that would require a constitutional amendment because it's really a change in the terms of how you're selected. And yeah. And I know this was an issue of great interest to my late father, who was a member of the Constitutional Convention of 1967 and 68, where this issue was hotly debated, and they almost thought they had it. Yeah. And then it slipped away. But good ideas are always worth pursuing. So,
and there's talk, there's like always these rumblings about another constitutional convention.
Right. Hope springs eternal. Let's talk about maybe a less fortunate turn of events in the last year, which is this proposal to, some folks would say, to affect the judicial equivalent of gerrymandering. And can you explain, folks, what went on with that and maybe what's likely to happen?
So again, it is a proposal to change our Constitution. And it would be an amendment that would be brought in front of the people, right? Not something that a governor can veto or support. But what happened was that there has been a bill proposed to change the way we elect our appellate court judges. Again, we elect them across the entire state, and this proposed amendment would change it to elect them by districts. So we would have 7 districts for the Supreme Court, 15 districts for the Superior Court, and 10 districts for the Commonwealth Court. And this proposed bill, which includes language for an amendment, has actually been passed twice by the legislature and passed once by the legislature, published. And so it would have to be passed a second time, published again before it would actually make it to the ballot. But we are hoping that it does not see the light of day. It has really, the first time it passed the House and Senate, I like to say it was like a boulder coming down a hill. There was no warning. There was no stopping it. It happened over July 4th weekend, and it was just really caught everybody off guard, including some of the legislators themselves. So once Pennsylvanians learned about it, they did get up in arms, and there was a lot of communication with their state representatives, and I believe that put a halt to it for now.
Yeah. And what's the chief objection to that proposal?
Well, I'd like to explain it as it has the expectation to make a appellate court judge who is responsible for judges across the entire state responsible to a small constituency, which really, doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. Well, as you
Besides
said
the fact
earlier,
that because it also, I mean, to distill it even further, it will impact the independence of a judge, right? The judge is going to be more concerned with his or her constituency, allegedly, than with the rule of law.
well, as you said earlier, a judge's constituency should be a constituency of one, and that is the rule of law. In other words, the Pennsylvania Constitution.
David, you know what we forgot to discuss? On the ballot are also retention elections.
Perfect. Take it away.
Okay, so,
This is particularly confusing, I can say, from huddling with my wife last night.
And actually, I completely agree, because there's even less information out there about these candidates, right? So these are individuals who have already served a term or another, few terms as a judge or justice. And so they're up for reelection because it's only when you're running for judge, it's a 10-year term. When you're running for a magisterial district judge, so it's a 6-year term. So you have to run again. And we don't have term limits in Pennsylvania. And so you are up for reelection, but it's a yay or nay. So in most cases, people really don't know. So they just say, okay, the person's been a judge, let's go yay. But there still needs to be some homework into each candidate. And the bar associations do an investigation. It's a different kind of investigation, I will say. It is not as lengthy. What they do is they send a survey for the Philadelphia Bar Association, for example. They send a survey to all lawyers asking if you've been in front of this judge. And then if you have, there's a series of questions. So that's what the Philadelphia Bar Association's retention review is based on. And then if there's not a certain level of response, there's a certain level of response that indicates there's some question, there will be a further investigation. But again, it's really hard to find out about a judge or justice running for retention. And how are you going to vote for them, right? Are you going to vote for them because you didn't like how they made a decision, but their decision is following the rule of law?
Yeah. Well, a lot to think about as you head off to the poll today. If you haven't voted already, polls are open till 8. Or if you haven't deposited your mail ballot, which at this point you should only do in a drop box or a county election office, because too late for the mail.
Go to City Hall too, in Philadelphia.
But Debbie Gross, thanks for joining us, and thanks for doing what you do in dealing with a somewhat imperfect system, hoping to make it better, but also helping to voters to sort of sort through things even today. So we'll see you along the trail, and thanks again for joining us.
Good to see you.